Hello.
Hello, and welcome back to number 21.
This is Sayun, our guest today. Say hello, Sayun.
Hello, hi everyone. I'm glad to be here. Yeah, I don't mind my lighting. Just a bit difficult to get it better here. I'm a bit dark.
You're in a hotel in
I
Nigeria.
apologize if you don't see my face. Just follow my words in conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna. This is the latest of our webinar, number 21, our corruption masterclass. Sayun, you're gonna teach us all how to be corrupt, but also at the same time how to fight corruption.
And Sayun really is a master of this. He's taught us a lot about corruption, and which is endemic in his part of the world, but like all great things, is spreading to all around the world as well. And so I think there's, regardless of where you live, we can learn a lot from someone who's been battling corruption and thinking about corruption for years and years and years. And Sayun was really gracious enough to give us an hour of his time. It's Friday night in Nigeria. He really wants to go out, and he's doing this.
So
I will try.
I wanted especially to have you because I think the things that you were talking about when we were in Guinea are especially relevant and newly relevant here in the United States. And I think unfamiliar. Like, people are sort of just surprised by the level of corruption and the audaciousness, and in a way are stunned. And to have your insights are going to be really helpful. So I'm going to put your presentation on here, and go ahead and lead us through it.
All right, good. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who's here and those who would listen later. My name is Oluseun Onigbinde. I work for an organization called BudgIT. BudgIT is an organization based in Lagos and Abuja in Nigeria. And the work we do is to ensure that citizens understand how public funds are spent, and ask questions and demand actions on the basis of that. And in between that, you find skill and corruption issues that have to even do about how public officials abuse public office and they use it for private gain. Then I'll talk to you about corruption, but before we start, just to say, in the US, there's a language called MAGA, which calls Make America Great Again. But when you say MAGA in Nigeria, it's an easily fooled person, so you kind of wonder, like, why of all slangs, of all things, the campaign slogan was about MAGA. Some sounds like some scam. I don't know. but it's always a joke in Nigeria to say, oh no, this is MAGA. But in a way, I will go straight to kickstart. It's to start with the context of now, which has to do with the Transparency International. And in the Transparency International, had this ranking, and they had two countries. I'm going to take two countries. One is Switzerland. So you have 180 countries were surveyed across the world, and Nigeria was ranked 148th most corrupt country. I don't know if we were worse than that or better. If anybody's worse than Nigeria in corruption, then definitely you really understand that there is a big problem in that.
Debate, right? There's a big point of debate when we were in West Africa.
Yeah.
Because there's like the Guineans and the Nigerians kind of squared off next to each other, and
about who was more corrupt.
Yeah, but that's the issue. But something always comes to my mind is, it looks like an incomplete narrative in itself. If you look at Switzerland is third, if I will use most honest, third most honest or third least corrupt country in the world. And Nigeria is 148,
How do they rank?
Yeah, so if you have, so number 3 means that there's no corruption. Yeah, like there's little or no corruption. So 148 means there's a whole lot of corruption, and they're always graded by scores. So that means there are almost 145 countries between Switzerland and Nigeria. And the question you will ask is, which brings me to the next slide. It's about there's a story of a guy called Sonny Abacha. So Sonny Abacha was a dictator that we had right up from 1993 to 1998. He had monies all around the world, you know, in the US, in Jersey, in Liechtenstein. Till now, Sonny Abacha in the grave smiles a bit at us and thinks of us that we are in distress in Nigeria. And some guy finds some of his money stashed in another corner of the world, and somebody sends us $400 million. Then, so we've been blessed by his fortune of stealing our money and putting it all around the world. Yeah.
An investment practice.
Yeah, it was like invested in our future, you know. Like, but Sonny Abacha, so for like 20 years now, the government of Nigeria has been uncovering funds and limited to Sonny Abacha, and Switzerland has returned. It's like it's going to return another $320 million this month. Yeah,
wow.
Switzerland returned $1.40 billion dollars to Nigeria that was stashed by Sonny Abacha in 1998. Now, so the question and these are things that are not easy to get. Like, it takes long list of legal jurisdiction and a whole lot of legal pronouncement, and it's a complex web of stuff for you even to be able to get this money. But you know, the most shocking thing that could happen to you is that when the Sonny Abacha loot that was looted, that was returned, and was looted again, so that becomes much more complex. So like
they returned $1 billion and it was stolen again, basically.
Yeah, so there was a $500 million that was returned through the World Bank to Nigeria, part of this money, and Nigeria still can't account for the money till now. Yeah. So it's like a whole complex stuff. Just different times, different actors, same outcome. That's the same way. But I'll talk about corruption in more because, and my question here is that why would Switzerland rank 3 and Nigeria will rank 148? If some guy keeps the money of corruption, if some guy is stocking the money of corruption, and some guy is giving it, both of them should be equally ranked, you know, so that incentivize you to stop taking corrupt money. You know, it's not good when the West pops up its own narrative to say, we are not corrupt, we don't steal our own money, but you know that they are politically exposed persons who stop all of African funds, Congo, Nigeria, Gabon, Central America, Guinea, Zimbabwe, and stock it in your banks. And in some sort of way, it doesn't show that you are not corrupt. You are equally corrupt. It's as just narratives just continuously favor you. So that's just that. But we'll go back to the lesson of Nigeria, and we see that Nigeria is not immune alone. Like I did some work with Liberia on Ebola. When we did this work in Liberia and Ebola, it was clear that people can still steal funds meant for Ebola. People can still pocket funds that are meant to treat people. And the question that I always ask myself is corruption like a case of an opportunity that we have lost control? It's something that we have to accept, that it has come to stay with us, and that we don't have a choice. They just find a way to mitigate or reduce it. The reason is that our former president painted a picture then, and this is what he said. He said, if you put a yam, and if you put a goat where a yam is, it will eat it. And if you put people where the money is, they will steal it. Sounds very simplistic, but that's always the situation of things. Once people see cash and they find some level of opacity, some level of discretion, some level of weak institutions, which I'm still going to come back to, they tend to help themselves in the process, you know, and that's exactly what you see in Nigeria.
I gotta tell you, when you said this, when we were in West Africa, there was part of me that was like, no. People are trustworthy. I have more faith in humanity, right? But it's true. It's not, and I also think like, well, I wouldn't take it, right? But it's not about that. It's about that when you create a structure that doesn't have accountability, when you create systems where people can take money, you're just increasing the likelihood that they will take advantage of that or you know, receive themselves.
And that's exactly the situation of things that when you create a scenario, when you create an opportunity for people to steal public funds, it will somehow happen. It's the way to. It's only the only way to stop that from happening is if the opportunity cost is high. If somebody knows that if I steal public funds, I might go to jail, I might be disgraced, I might be barred from coming back within my circle. That gets them to think through that much more often.
Right.
So that's if you create opportunities for it, it will happen. And for us, it's just about so what do we call corruption? Is it just stealing? Because a lot of times we've narrowed it down to like stealing of public funds, and that's why it's easy for people like Transparency International to say, "Oh, we're most corrupt, and Switzerland is less corrupt," or to look at lobbying in some sort of way in the U.S. and say, "Oh, that's not corruption, that's just lobbying." And because everybody just says, "Oh, until if you don't directly put public funds in your pocket, you don't steal." But it could be much more deeper than that. And there's a guy, a researcher with the Sunlight Foundation, who defines corruption. It can be thought of as a capture of concentrated interest at the expense of it can be thought of as a capture of concentrated interest or benefits of a sweet politician at the expense of diffuse costs borne by the public at large in form of inefficient, wasteful, and illegitimate governance. Let me just get it.
Yeah. They know what you're talking about, Oleseun.
Okay. Okay, so like I said, if you look at it, some words are here: concentrated benefits. That means some guy is going to benefit from this. That's very
not necessarily financial.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily financial. It could just be to boost your ego. It could just be to boost your status. It could just be to benefit somebody somehow. It's not necessarily going to be financial. Yeah. Now, the costs of that will be borne by the public. Let's assume that you have 10 people that qualify for a job, but you decide on your own, say, okay, you know what? This guy merits this position, but I'm not going to, because I know I have the discretion to make this happen. I'm going to pick wherever I like. I'm going to just take, I'm not going to give these guys who merited the opportunity. I'm going to take whatever I like, and I'm going to do what I like. And let's assume that that's in the medical space, where you populate people with doctors who are incompetent. The cost will come back to the public.
Right.
Now you get some private gain through that. You enjoy yourself to feel like I can choose whatever I like to man an hospital. But if you have quacks handling your medicals, your medicines, and treating patients, there will be problems. So at the end of the day, you find that the Transparency International says it's in a more simple way that says it is the use of public power for private gain. As simple as that. Yeah, which is you take opportunities that have been given to you because you have an opportunity in the public and you just concentrated that. And that's why I say that concentrated benefits and cost borne by the public. And the always says we can assume that we are not the problem. We also equally part of the problem but like corruption, like politicians, because corruption is like sex. It takes two people to engage.
Or more.
Yeah, or more. Yeah, 3 or 4 more.
We're like open thinking around here.
We have some form of ludicrous orgy in those space, and that's the problem. Yeah, it takes more than 2 entities or more to really engage. But the thing about much more difficult is that this is not only a West African problem. This is a global problem. I've looked at it always to say Malaysia. They have a prime minister who's been investigated for $1 billion that was put in his personal bank account, and much of it is from the State Investment Fund. The Wall Street Journal is doing a report on that. Australia had a speaker who spent $30,650 to hire an helicopter for what he could have taken a car for. That's why it's not just about corruption. Is not just about stealing, waste of public funds. Like you have an housing minister who's on an investigation right now for abusing public funds in an inefficient way. That's corruption, or Brazil, where you use public funds for patronage. So it can come in different forms. But the most important thing is that,
just for example, like if you were to say hire like a fleet of golf courses or golf carts for security that you happen to own, right? And you charge for that would be a form of corruption.
That would be a form of corruption. So, for example, if you take golf courses now, you have golf courses. You fly in there every weekend.
Just as an example.
You go as an opportunity for access to discuss opportunities of how we're going to grease each other's palms. You get to charge those people. You get to charge those people as members so they can have access to you and be able to cut deals. It's some sort of way. It's corruption. Yeah, it's corruption because you've used your public power to derive private gain for yourself. Yeah, you've created a club and a space where you're using public funds to fly into a place. You're using public personnel to protect you and take you to golf resorts. In some sort of way, you're bringing private people in to have a conversation on governance and sign deals and contracts. In the end of the day, if it's proven, it's corruption. Because in some sort of way, we see it as just pocketing public funds. But it can be way more sophisticated than that. Yeah.
So let's talk about what happens. What happens after these scandals?
So if what happens after the scandals is what matters. And maybe that's why you find more West African countries or African countries are much more weaker. So if in Malaysia, investigation continues. Australia, Brown Bishop had to resign. Brazil, the president had to be impeached. The question is what happens after corruption? And if you look at it in the US, once in a while, get it right. Like they had this guy, Blagovic, was the former governor of Chicago, who was doing play for pay, and he was selling the Barack Obama seat to the highest bidder. He was collecting bribes for appointment, and until he was sentenced to 14 years in jail. So so in some sort of way, the US is also not immune from these things. But it looks like when the arm of the law catches you,
you've got a good example here of a US politician with an audacious hairstyle, and we have others. If you need them, we can send them over.
Exactly. The hair seems to go with it somehow.
Yeah, but like I said, corruption is everywhere. West Africa, Africa, they've got this musician who says if you leave a country because of corruption, just like leaving the country because of rain. And it's true because it's going to rain everywhere. You're going to find rain, and if they think because of corruption, you leave the US, leave Nigeria for the US, you're still going to fight corruption in the US, but maybe not as brazen as what you have in Nigeria or other West African countries. For example, in Ghana, you had a government who spent 510. Who's found out that the power deal was inflated by $150 million. Or he spent $3.6 million to repaint a bus with the portrait of his leader. Yeah, but in the end, the Minister of Transport had to leave in some sort of way. So that's way. Another thing you could find in some other countries like Nigeria. We always say Nigeria has a PhD in corruption. Like there's this guy called Kola Luko and Jide Omokore. These guys were just normal guys. We're just average lawyer in the US, and somehow found ourselves in some kind of form of friendship with the petroleum minister. We don't even know the true state of the friendship. At the end of the day, there's a court in Nigeria that's mandated that they need to return $1.76 billion. Yeah, because they took oil from wells, but they never made the equity share to the Nigerian government. They never paid royalties to the Nigerian government. Yeah. Wow. So that's the real problem. Yeah, that's the problem. Well, you have Liberia with a mining deal, and then that was why it was shocking for some people. When the Mo Ibrahim decided to award the $5 million prize to the former president of Liberia, because it was like, she's also not immune. And I think she also accepted that on issues of corruption, they didn't do enough, in the way to tackle corruption. Then same thing with Senegal. Then you could find Senegals. Yeah. You want a question?
Yeah. So Sam, as you're speaking about these, I'm thinking, if I'm a reporter, I know what to do.
Yeah.
If I'm a lawyer, I have a pretty good idea of how to fight corruption. But a lot of our audience are artists. And, how could an artist help fight corruption? And one of the things that really impressed upon us when you were speaking before is about how corruption becomes sort of part of the culture, right? And so how do you see some of these things getting combated on a cultural front? Like, what can artists do?
Is he frozen?
I think he's frozen. That was such an incredible question that he's thinking about it.
Take your time. Take your time. You can think about it.
Exactly.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Oh, are you back?
Yeah, he's back. Okay. So we lost you for a little while.
Wait, no, maybe. Catching up, things are getting
good.
So,
all right. So opacity is a problem in itself. You have discretion. So weak institutions, you have poor legislations, you have passive citizenry. So most of them always advise artists to target citizens. That's what they do, because that's where the form of their power is strong. Some of the ways we've done some of our work is to use what we call infographics. Take infographics. When there's a corruption case in Nigeria, craft an infographic. And find a way to use mass media to distribute that, to say, this is the alternative cost of what you're trying to do. And in a way, sensationalize it. For example, there was a scenario where there was $20 billion that was unaccounted for in Nigeria. Part of that money was later accounted for, but there was a huge allegation by the former central bank governor of Nigeria, something like a Federal Reserve chairman in the US, and $20 billion is a whole lot of money. And coming from someone like a central bank governor, it was a huge allegation. And the question everybody was asking is, how do we understand this? What's the use of this? So we built an infographics which we call Shopping with $20 billion. And we said, if you're going to go on a shopping with $20 billion, this is exactly what you're going to finally buy. And it got a whole lot of traction, a whole lot of push, a whole lot of engagement in terms of way, because you find out that the way you build the narratives must be really interesting, or when you have a corruption case, you're able to show like this is the true story of a governor who stole $3.2 billion, something around $10 million in Nigeria, and he's on a whole lot of case. So we use infographics.
You have a good example.
Just before we get to that, I mean, I think that's super important, because when you start talking about $1 billion or $10 billion, it's just an abstraction. And I really like that idea of taking that and putting it into, this is what you could buy in terms of groceries. Taking the abstract and making it concrete and real. And that's really something that I think artists can be really good at, is doing that sort of translation out of the economic wonky stuff into the experience of every day.
And I'm going to go back to your earlier slides, but I just thought, as long as we're talking about examples, maybe you could talk about this one.
So this one is also when I was inspired. It's street art in Liberia. So there's this popular junction in Liberia, and there's this amazing guy who writes issues of corruption and misgovernance on his own platform. And this was during the Ebola story. This government anti-corruption action less, over 300 people killed, millions of dollars donated, questioned, as Ellen declared state of emergency. Then he puts a cheeky story there, Ebola 7, the government 1. Like Ebola beat government medically and also financially, still wrecking its havoc. So, and you can find a lot of people engaged about that. The most important thing is human is always the most important element. which is which audience. It's not about the messaging first, but which audience are we trying to communicate with? What medium would be best to engage with them? It could be infographics, it could be street art, it could be anything. And sometimes it goes beyond that, and you will have to basically do a cartoon. You know, for example, you have cartoons all around the world, country. Or no, this is an example of one in Mali, or we have one even in Nigeria. You know, called Asue Koto. You know, a lot of great cartoonists, you know, across the world who build cartoons to just satirize corruption and be able to it's not just laugh, but to have some kind of deep provocation about the scale of the problem.
Sion, can we talk a little about that, like the power of laughter? Like in some ways, it's about ridicule, right? And you know, how can you have laughter about an incredibly sober issue? Like what's the role of laughter?
So for me, I think it's critical because laughter satires are in a way to really open up the soul of society. You know, to say this is who we are. We might not be able to say it in the most difficult or most piercing way, but if we're able to come to you in a much more appealing and a much more interesting and relaxed way, maybe we can sip in your attention. Because the human mind sometimes gets to a point of apathy, you know, that you've heard so much bad news and say, okay, it's just another bad news. You know, it's just another bad story. And then that's some kind of things we challenge in Nigeria, where citizens have read about corruption. And they basically don't feel anything when another issue pops up, you know, or they just basically joke about it. For example, there's a small issue in Nigeria where some certain government officials had like not a lot of money, but it's like $100,000 was supposed to be remitted back into government coffers. And when the lady who was interviewed was asked, where is this money? She said the money was swallowed by snake when they kept the money in the office. Now that's a serious issue here, real serious issue. Yeah, and it trended. I guess it's still trending in Nigeria's Twitter till now, you know, for like almost 2 weeks now. But everybody decided to laugh about it. And everybody decided to joke about it. Everybody decided to say, okay, maybe it's now going to be monkey, maybe it's now going to be a dog, maybe it's now going to be an elephant. Maybe this corruption, maybe if this guy steals money, we will need an elephant to swallow it, you know. So sort of a lot of people now had to build their own face. It's interesting because it gets viral, you know, it gets that traction. Laughter allows you to get traction because a lot of people see themselves in it. What you need to now do as someone who's like an intermediary is to harness that moment, you know, to now be able to try for that conversations. So BudgIT would love to be part of that conversation, but we're not going to just stay on the conversation to say, this is about laughter. We're going to say, okay, this is the problem. You know, this is the issue.
Right.
But we can't stay on that. We're going to move on and say, so we had an event last week where we brought the official involved. I mean, like the government, he was able to explain more on what steps they are taking to ensure that such person is possibly punished or, you know, or taken to court. So it's good to have laughter, but it's also good that we must now harness it to get results. Yeah.
So I want to go back to your part of the slides here about the mindset of corruption and what keeps corruption alive, because we're running short on time, and I thought it was really valuable when we saw it last time. So can you take us through this part?
So the mindset that really nurtures corruption or keeps it going is a sense of impunity. You know, a sense of to believe that nothing can really change. You know, nothing can really. This is, you know, like there's this book by Michel Aron called "Is Our Thumb to Eat." You know, and that's what it is. If you believe that if there's a sense of helplessness in the system, to believe that nothing will change, you know,
and that I think that's cultivated, right? That attitude, the sense of helplessness, part of the corruption is cultivating that attitude in people.
Yeah, it cultivates that attitude in people, and that's when you have weak institutions. What's powers that more strongly, because if everybody feels everybody's doing it and nobody gets punished, then everybody continues doing that. You know, or you know that you can run around around the legislation. You could hire 10 senior lawyers. You could, find a way to use technicalities to quash the cases. You can find different ways to just keep yourself innocent. Everybody would continue doing that at a staggering scale. Yeah. But and also things like that also thrive in opacity. There was a system that is not open, and that's why the Sunlight Foundation always says sunlight is the best disinfectant. Like, if we are going to be able to fight corruption, we need to be able to bring some light in the room. People
Right.
who are always, most corrupt people who have issues with transparency, yeah, to believe that somehow they will be found out, and in no small way. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that artists can do insofar as, one thing that artists can be really good at is revealing things that people don't want to look at, right? They kind of taking things out of the shadows, and whether it's documentary film or even sort of, poems that are about things that happen when nobody cares, nobody looks like, and bringing it out into the light.
Yeah, because the reality and the truth most times is that the artist is the guy who actually opens up the ugly truths in the system.
Yeah.
Everybody can try and be correct most times. Everybody tries to be right, to be right. But the artist comes in a very satiric, ugly truth where the whole context is explained in a very subtle way. You get to see the message in itself.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone who has that self-awareness, begin to understand it's exactly where the problem really is. Yeah.
So tell us about excessive discretion.
Okay, so you have a situation where you have discretion, and this sometimes comes about what you will see in a country like Nigeria, where you as a minister have something called security votes. So you're given close to like $1 million every month to keep your state secure. Now you don't get to account for that money at all. Now, so you just imagine someone gets $1 million that you don't account for every month. In the end of the day, you would definitely blow it on necessary stuff. Nobody's even so. If there's no way that you allow technology or you allow the system to perpetuate in a way that things go through proper process, but you put a whole of human factor in, and you allow people to choose when they do stuff and when they don't do stuff, then definitely there's going to be corruption. Because if you revolve,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, if you revolve a system around just somebody who can be questioned, at the end of the day, it will create a patronage that would undermine the state. Yeah.
We have a thing here where, we theoretically have civilian oversight of the military, right, and military spending. And so the politicians are supposed to sort of be that check, right? They're the civilian oversight. But there's such deference to the military that, questioning any of their funding is seen to be, anti-American or something. And in fact, that's what we need in order to prevent it from getting out of control with this kind of excessive discretion.
Mm-hmm. And again, this is where artists can do a real good, because one of the things, particularly like satirical artists, is it pulls everybody down off a pedestal. Mm-hmm. And if you can laugh at them, then you can question them, right? And that's part of the process of kind of taking away authority of people.
Let's talk about. Go ahead.
You're very right. Yeah, you're right, Steve. Because people who want to steal public funds, they tend to create some myth around the subject. That's what they try to do. For example, something in Nigeria, they say, "Oh, security funds, you can't ask too much questions." And somehow we found out that people were using security funds as a conduit to fund the last election. And
wow.
That was, yeah. So, and they say, "Oh, we're fighting Boko Haram. We're trying to rescue young girls who are in captivity, but in some sort of way, we're helping themselves through different channels to spread out public funds." So that's like the problem itself.
So Rebecca has a question for you, which leads into this next weak institutions. She says, the current administration here in the U.S. and much of public culture is successfully undermining the idea of institutions and processes, anti-corruption agencies, regulations, and so on. How can we save them? How can we actually bolster up institutions so people have faith in them again?
Yeah, the trust is really broken. Trust is really broken. And that's not like an American phenomenon, it's a global phenomenon. People are losing faith in governments. Um, and just because, and sometimes you see that coming in extreme reaction, coming in through um, joining right-wing movements, people saying things that will, having more stronger nationalist favor, just because they feel that government does not work, or maybe globalization itself doesn't just help them. And I guess the only way is to really get our institutions to be strong again, is to keep them much more open.
Mm-hmm.
And also, yeah, we need to keep them much more open. There's a whole lot of myth around things that does not allow us trust institutions. For example, um, you have a going scenario of a special counsel that has been drawn up in the US to ensure that they can investigate the last elections by the US. In some sort of way, you've created an open system with there are multiple layers of checks. So there's a check on the president, there's a check on FBI, there's a special counsel who also can be drafted if there's a conflict in between citizen spaces. Or, for example, I was reading that on CNN just a few hours ago that the Israeli prime minister was questioned, by investigators on some 3 cases of corruption. Now, it's the same thing about systems like Nigeria. That's not possible in Nigeria. Nobody can question the president. No prosecutor can question the president because the president is permanently under immunity while in office. But if you have more open institutions which overlapping layers of authority, you're able to build institutions that are much stronger and much more independent. But when the entire institution revolve around just one person, someone is trying hard, to revolve the institutions around one person, quietly, it will give way to corruption, and also even democracy itself is threatened. Yeah, so that's why they keep institutions open and give multiple layers of authority so that somehow a single entity balances itself out, or one entity is able to keep another accountable.
So you kind of touched on this, but part of the way that corruption stays alive is that there's not consequence. There's the risk is sort of low for violating these rules. And then our last one is passive citizenry, and this is certainly something we can do about, right?
Yeah, this is what we can do about it. Is that we've talked about using of heart. We underestimate that a lot. Design, the power of data, design, narratives, storytelling. To build engagement. To humorize it, to simplify it. To build engaging and stimulating audiences. The power of that is strong, and it's important that we always understand that we need to harness that or support those who are doing that. Something that you did in Guinea, or somebody what we do in Nigeria too. Also, even and also technology. A lot of people who want to be corrupt don't want technology to intervene in conversations. For example, in Nigeria, you have public contracts still going through a manual process where someone tags a copy of the contract journal on the notice board. There are few people who have access to processes done manually, and that kind of process is really hard. That you not find corruption, but you being able to apply technology to simplify stuff helps the system much more way to be efficient. And I think that's what citizens could champion. That's why a lot of times we talk about systems like open contracting. If we have open contracting, we will be able to get things to be happen. If we have things like the EITI, the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, and get that going and ensure that there's public disclosure of extractive payments by our government, extractive payments to individuals, there will be much more openness and much more less corruption. There was a legislation, or maybe it's a executive order in the US that all US extractive companies are meant to disclose payments to government. Yeah, Donald Trump, your president came up and canceled that. So the U.S. was pulling back from that, some sort of way, and that affects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
MAGA. MAGA.
Yeah, it's MAGA. Like easily fool everyone, and so that's the issue. That if you don't keep transparency in play, so that you give people the right to ask questions, or be able to punch holes in the data, you don't even have nothing to even hold them to account to corruption, incentivize corruption some sort of way. And then for me, that you need to build all of that, and in better is underpin them all by strong institutions. The police has to be real strong. The prosecution agencies have to be real strong. People need to understand that stealing public funds or abusing public power, comes with a high cost. It's like Joe basic economics again, and that comes when citizens also use their demand power. When we have a lot of initiatives in Africa, BudgIT, Zalendo, Africa Check, everybody doing some sort of way to hold public officers accountable. But it's very important that we support those people, and thank you for a lot of private foundations support our work and similar work. But we need to just do more to support people on the ground who are asking questions, who are energizing citizens to take action and improving demand from citizens. Yeah.
So, Sayun, we've got some really good questions here, and I just want to encourage people that are watching at home to type in questions into, there's a box, there should be a box or a way to ask questions. It's there for all of you. It'll be different depending on what kind of device you're using, but we've got one here from Isabel, and Isabel is in Mexico, and the first thing Isabel says is, thank you so much. And in Mexico, I've seen what drives corruption is the idea that more money is better, that progress comes with unlimited wealth and power. At the end of the day, the self-interest is put first, and it's more important to be wealthy than allowing people to be well, and justified by the idea that poverty is necessary for progress. How do you think we can change systematically to stop this? My country's level of corruption is so high, I don't know if there's a way out. And I think there's something you said earlier about, part of the way that corruption works is that feeling, right? It's like not feeling like that there's a way out. So, not to put you on the spot, but do you have any ideas about this?
How do you create systems? How do you create strong systems that work? It's like classic economics. Strong systems don't just happen overnight. There are always initial stages underpinned by strong individuals who are able to put a foot down and use personal example to set a precedent. And gradually, after you set a personal example of yourself, you put structures and processes that will last you. And that's how gradually you call on institutions. So that even if you put an idiot there, or a corrupt person there, you find it very, very difficult to operate from that kind of space. I guess it's just about looking for the right people first. For countries like developing South countries, right people, right kind of leadership. I think that's where we kind of focus. How do you get honest, people of character to be in public office? And gradually, how do you show them that it has to be beyond them? Because there's always a temptation for such people to think it has to always be about them. Pointing them to things about apply open contract, do extractive transparency, open up the budgets of the country, find a way to make sure that issues of accountability are mainstream to the people. Gradually, institutions become strong. And even if citizens find out that the ball is being dropped, they pick it up and ensure that they energize it. But you need to find people to even power those institutions and make sure that you keep them at bay, that they don't overstep their edges.
Mm-hmm. In the U.S., I think we were working with a group called United for a Fair Economy. And one of the things we picked up on is that they're in Massachusetts, the state of Massachusetts, but the state of Massachusetts is technically called the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And so they started to use that and try to leverage that and talk about what we do with the Commonwealth that we share together, right? And I think one of the ways that the interesting part of this question to me is that that idea of like, well, for me to enrich myself is a great thing, and if you're and that poverty is sort of a price that we pay to progress, but that as artists we can promote a different idea that we should all be, we all need to be raised up, right? And I think the austerity arguments are that everyone needs to cut back and everyone needs to sort of live in misery, but a different approach can be to say that no, we should all have abundance, and the amount of theft that's happening would allow us to live in abundance, all of us, and have a much more equal society, and to envision that society and then talk about how we can move forward.
Yeah. Now, it also strikes me is that in order to change institutions, we also need people that want to change institutions and that will find it unacceptable to act in a corrupt way. I mean, one of the things when we were working with you in West Africa, a lot of what we talked about is sort of changing fundamental people's perceptions of what is acceptable or not. Yeah. And so that instead of going into a party and everybody celebrating because you're rich and powerful, you go into a party and everybody looks down on you because you stole the money. And that then, you know, with that, you can actually put teeth into institutions, and you can also make everybody in the whole culture part of a way of thinking that will not allow corruption to take root.
Yeah, you're very right. You know, you're very right, because narrative is important when it comes to fighting corruption. For countries like Nigeria,
we lost him.
Well, maybe you can hear us, and I think we could talk about this in the meantime, because it's a quick question. This is from Salette, and it's do name and shame campaigns work? I think this came up recently.
Oh, yes. This is a great question and came up in West Africa, and they do work, but also...
It gets more difficult.
Oh, there we go.
So then that'll be the speed up thing.
Resource-rich countries. There's a level of...
So fast forward. Let's see if we get a minute.
Let's see if we get it.
I am surprised at how well this from Nigeria has worked so far.
Yeah, exactly. Sion's doing this on his phone. We should sit
I guess is the data.
I feel bad.
I think it's getting weak, but maybe I can finish. But like I said, narratives are very, very important. Yeah, you need to look at this. Nigeria, because it's a natural resource country. There's a feeling people don't see oil money as their own money. You know, like in the US, talk about taxes.
Yes.
So we be like the Commonwealth. You need to personalize the message. It's very, very important. You know, what would you do if your daughter is missing? What would you do if an hospital is stolen? You know, what would you do? You know, because you have to create a narrative to say people don't just steal public money. They steal schools, they steal hospitals,
right?
Yeah. They steal food. No, they steal. No, so we don't just call it money. Money makes it be intangible, like something. You know, so creating that kind of narratives helps you and showing that it's not government money. You know, it's the public money. There's always subtle way politicians trying to couch conversations so that citizens get a bit grateful, you know, about our public resources. But we're trying to just say, no, it's not their own resource. It's a resource of everyone. So narratives, shaping narratives, using languages, it's always very important so that you can shift people's mind. Because most of the conversations are about getting people to fight corruption, even the artists of what we do. It's a mind game. It's a whole psychological warfare going on there.
Mm-hmm. So we have a question from Salette, which we lost you on for a second. But her question was, do name and shame campaigns work?
Sometimes it depends on how it's about how strong the media is. The media is a critical factor of this, and the media what people tend to respect. A lot of people do it in Nigeria, but I don't think it gets the traction because politicians care about their reputation, and when they find out that their reputation is dropped low and is spread all around in a mass way, they get feel threatened. You know, so it's always important to, if you're going to do a tool like the name and shame, you know, do you have the reach? You know, do you have the spread? Is there a credible medium that the politicians get to be afraid? if for example, New York Times writes something about Nigeria, Nigeria gets to get more word than if a local newspaper writes about it. Because New York Times will possibly got is what the investors are reading, is what the bondholders are reading, it's what international communities or someone with a rating agency somewhere is reading. So some sort of way, there's a bit of quick reaction to say what exactly is happening here. So it's always the credibility of the medium is important. And also even in Nigeria too, you find mediums that Sarah Reporters, Premium Times, Cable, Guardian. If they say you are the worst politician of the year, or you've done something so wrong, people get energized and ask questions.
So Sayun, we've got one more question from you. This is from a class that's watching in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Hello.
Oh.
And they're young artists and designers, and they said they wonder how you deal with fear of confronting corruption and fear for yourself and or others.
All right, so what I always do is don't make it about yourself, don't personalize the word so much. That's why for most of us is to show it to the citizens. Sometimes you're trying to knock down the leaders, and you can put yourself in harm's way if you do. We're trying to incentivize citizens themselves to see themselves in the fight. You're not an intermediary. Sometimes you're more of like a beacon. Some like showing people the way that these are the issues, these are the problems, these are things that you're supposed to care about, and you need to raise your voice about. You need to take action. You need to call your MP. You need to write him a letter. You need to do so. Show people action. A lot of times people get worried about. We get worried. We get threats. We've got sometimes some of my colleagues got arrested. I wouldn't say it doesn't exist. It does exist, but most of the time I try as much as possible to personalize the work less and allow the organization carry it, and ensure that it's geared towards the people, reaching the mass audience and telling them they themselves need to see these issues and let them take the best of the action that they feel can change stuff. So I guess that's the best way. Then pray. I don't know what else. Pray that you'll be fine. Yeah.
It seems a little too modest because he actually does live with threats, and that you wake up every day and you still do your work even though sometimes it's not so safe.
Yeah, you wake up like last 2 months. One of our officers was arrested while he was tracking public projects of a MP or a senator who pocketed public funds. And they said he was trying to incentive. He was preaching hate speech, and he was trying, because that could be an easy way to hold him on. He was trying to, raise a tribe against each other, and so sometimes people giving us some anonymous calls that we get worried about. But we report to the authorities. Use your social media or your media power to raise our awareness and conversations about it. Then gradually somebody, gets to understand that these are not the kinds of people to mess up. Yeah.
You're a popular guy, Sam. If people want to reach you, I know that there's the BudgIT website if they want to learn more. Is that the best place?
They can reach us on the BudgIT website. There's a chat bot there, but I can share my email somewhere in
I do have that. Is it? It's not info at your budget, is it? I have this over here.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's your budget. Yeah.
We can call you.
Send to.
We can be one of the many people that call you.
Yeah. Okay. Organizers and presenters only send. How do I do that?
Okay. Great, so we'll post that. So you're willing to share your email. That's great.
I'm willing to share my email. Yeah. But that's the general email. You can always reach me if you need more insights or more from what we've done, what we've learned in a way to communicate corruption and to be able to fight it. Yeah.
So Sayun, I want to say thank you for joining us all the way from Nigeria and bearing the burden of the cell phone costs and everything, all the data.
We'll buy you some drinks when you come here.
Yeah. But I also want to. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I said I hope you find it useful. I hope you.
Very much.
Yeah, your responses are great, and I mean it'd be great to have you back sometime too. I think there's more that we could talk about. But yeah, I just wanted to say next week we have another webinar with Marlene Ramirez Cancio on comedy and humor and
right,
this kind of work.
And touching on the same things you talked about, sort of how do we actually pull people off their pedestals sometimes, and how do we use humor to actually talk about very serious issues, but in such a way that people are open to hearing about them. So that's going to be happening next week.
And Rebecca's put in a link where you can register.
Right. And we just wanted to say thank you so much for giving up part of your Friday evening, sharing your wisdom with us. It was wonderful to meet you in West Africa, and hopefully we'll continue to do work with you because it's amazing work that you're doing.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Steve and Steve. Thank you so much. Yeah,
hey,
it's
a
pleasure.
To be able to do it.
Good luck. Have a cheers. Bye.
Yeah. All right. Have a good Friday night.
Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will try to have a great one. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.